Yeah, sure. Well, it was always a challenge because I always knew I was different. I mean, what some people found at school really easy, like they would love English and they would love maths and so on. I would absolutely just dread it because it was so foreign to me. I loved, oddly enough, I love speaking. I love the English language. I love knowing what words mean. Sort of like a complex word, what it actually means, as opposed to a word people may use in the general vernacular day to day. So I'm really interested in that and the language. But when it came to writing it down or writing a story, I found that hugely difficult. So those were really, really huge challenges I had at school. And automatically we were put into I mean, I guess for one of a better phrase, you could call it the slow class or whatever, for English and maths. Everything else I enjoyed maths, sorry, science, PE, drama, technical drawing, woodwork, all of those kind of things we had back in the 70s and 80s, really, back in the school days. I really enjoy. But the thing I knew where I was different was I would literally despise English and maths, but I would love art, or I'd love drama, or I'd love technical drawing or woodwork. And they were really easy because they were so creative. So my brain switched on to that, and I think, as I may have mentioned to you before, right from when I was a kid, as a young child, I could see everything in 3D. So I'd be seeing something really simple, and in my brain, I'm looking at it as an exploded diagram. So I could take things apart, put them together again, no problem. But if you asked me to write an English essay or write
Yeah.
a story, I couldn't do it. In a school of maybe 150, 200 kids, probably one of only three black children,
Wow.
and then maybe one of only five um, children from different parts of the world. When you extrapolate that, maybe from Asia or any other part of the world. So it was really in the minority on that basis. So there was that aspect, and then being teased because I was back then I was sort of obviously smaller but quite big and heavy in that sense. So it's almost like a trifecta of you could almost pick what you wanted to tease me about to that degree. So it was always having that aspect of being, I guess, to a degree, a relatively easy target, but on the flip side, having such a lovely, loving family, and my mummy and daddy always told me and my sister we could do what we wanted. They always entertained any whim or fancy of any academic or any event with anything we were interested in. They would buy us the equipment. They would take us to the classes. They would pay for us for that. So it was lovely because they just taught us there's nothing we couldn't do. So I grew up and I sort of grew into my skin and I realized, okay, well, this is what I'm good at. I'm not good at this. I don't know how I'm going to work around that for now, but I excel at maths, or sorry, I excel at drama, or I excel at art. And then I just said, you know what, I'm just gonna go with what works. And so then, I ended up from getting maybe a C in English, but getting an A+ in drama. And that's when I said, okay, well, that's my thing. I am good at something.
Mhm.
So we're gonna, ride it until the wheels fall off on that particular subject or those particular subjects. So good at that you are in the top 1% of the world, whether that might be art, whether that might be drawing, whether that might be having the ability to take a car engine apart and put it together without any. There is something that you excel at to make you the top 1% in the world. And you may know what that is already, or you may not. But with all of the difficulties you have with this, with the new adversity and the challenges, you've been given a gift. There's somewhere along that line you've been given a gift to be better than essentially anyone else in the world. Yeah, sure. Well, I'm very much a visual learner, and then also I learn sort of the way I learn is not having it down on paper. I need to learn on, okay, this is how it feels to do that job or that role or that activity in real life day to day. The little nuances about if I'm going to be interrupted, how the weather is, my where I'm going to be working, all of those little factors. I need to know how that feels so I can be comfortable with it. Because it can be such a difference having it written down on paper that you'll be doing this, you da 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 in this room at this time, to how it really feels in the reality, because the reality may be you're getting interrupted every 20 minutes,
Mhm.
the room's not available, whatever it might be. So that's how someone else you might be able to say, okay, Davina, I'm going to call you in for a meeting next week at 8 o'clock. And then you may forget about it until 8 o'clock, and then you go into that meeting and like, okay, yeah, cool, da da da. For someone like me, you call me into a meeting at 8 o'clock in 2 weeks' time, I'm going to be worrying that I've done something wrong. So for those 2 weeks, I'm going to think, what have I done wrong? What trouble am I in? Because they haven't said, oh, it's just a meeting to sort out, to tell you you've got 3 more days of annual holiday to take. And for me, I'm like, oh, great, but I would have spent 2 weeks worrying about that, as opposed to somebody else, maybe neurotypical, that'd be like, oh yeah, I'll put it in my diary and I'll remember on the day itself. So it's little nuances like that to give me lots of information, probably give me more information than not, to say, okay, I've got a meeting with you. It's just to discuss your annual leave. You've got more than you need. Have a think about what days you want to take off. And I can't worry about that because that's a good thing. So it's having that relationship with your line manager, your colleagues, your overall manager, to say, okay, this is how Steve works, to get the best out of him. It's going to be, he might need to know more information. He might need to know about a particular meeting 2 weeks in advance so he can process that coming up and coming. And he might need to know why that meeting is happening and what it's about, whereas somebody else just needs to know there's a meeting, just to keep things straight. So it's those little nuances, and part of it is knowing how your own brain works to know what's going to soothe you and make you feel comfortable. But it's also part of the infrastructure of the working environment or the employer to know what works for you and be able to put it into place, as well as sort of using the assistive technology to make life easier as well. No, I love that one because normally it's the other way around. You get, it's not a question you ever ask. I think it will be the fact that they literally see the world differently. Like they've had to navigate the world up until the point they're coming to interview with you. So they may be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever. So you're looking at somebody that's managed to navigate a difficult world as it is, even if you're neurotypical, things don't always go sweetly. But these people have had to have all of that, plus navigate the world with this challenge and still pay bills, still get married, still have children, still have a mortgage, cars, MOT, just everything a normal adult has to deal with. And yet they're still able to do it. So they've had to re-engineer their way of existing in the world for those, X amount of decades.